There we are. Okay, so optimizing your CV and portfolio for promotion purposes. I do have disclosures. I do get some royalties from Springer for 2 textbooks on diversity and inclusion in quality patient care. I am a funded researcher. I have contracts for teaching, and I'm a very biased person. And I am biased towards the mission and vision statement of AAM, including the statement that all human beings who have an emergency medical condition are entitled to the care of a specialist in emergency medicine. And I'm very biased towards diversity, equity, inclusion, and social justice. So it's impossible for me to talk without those biases showing up, and you probably will see them here. Today, what I'd like to do is to outline the components of a high-quality CV and portfolio, and then to explain to you how to pursue and achieve promotion in a timely fashion, and then look at how we can highlight our Latinx-specific contributions for promotional purposes. So what qualifies me to give this presentation? Well, I graduated from my residency in emergency medicine in 2004, and I set as a goal that I would be a full professor within 10 years of graduation. And I achieved it in 9 years. And I am one of only 3 people who have done so in emergency medicine. Another one is in the US and the other one is in South Africa. But I did it very strategically. And I'm going to share that strategy with you. And certainly I am beholden to the people who mentored me. And that's a critical thing when you think about mentoring. So people who mentored me for my success. When you take the AAMC Minority Faculty Development course, there is a woman there named Willie Mae Johnson who tells you that your mentor has to want your success as much as you do. And that's a double-edged sword, right? That means that they can't want it more than you do. So if they are putting in more work than you are, it's not going to be a successful mentorship relationship. But they also have to want it just as much as you do. And that means that in many cases, you will exceed your mentors. So many of my mentors knew that I would be achieving a goal that they did not achieve. And that was okay with them, because we learn when we become secure in who we are, that when your mentees do well, it reflects really well upon you. So I have faculty who trained me in my residency, who I am now writing promotion letters for. And that is critical. People want to see you get ahead. It's a credit to them. And then they will ask you to help them to get ahead. So I have faculty who I've been a professor for, 7 or 8 years longer than before they went up for professorship. So I have incredible experience mentoring and being mentored. I've actually mentored over 300 people in their career development, and I have tremendous experience being mentored by some of the best people in medicine. And I have had a lot of experience writing letters. So my referee experience, I do at least 25 or 30 letters a year for people who seek promotion. I review their portfolios. So I feel like I have a good sense to help other individuals as to how to prepare those things. So what goes into a high quality CV? I'm going to be stating the obvious, but I cannot tell you how many times people don't do these things. You must conform to the format that is used by your university. I've seen people turn in CVs that is in the format that was at the previous university they were at. Even if you don't like the format, I actually don't happen to like the format that LSU uses. I don't think it makes for an attractive looking CV when you pick the pages up and look at them, but I have to conform to it. You must conform the same way that you may not like the manuscript format when you submit a journal article, and that is the most frequent mistake made for people submitting journal articles. It's the same thing with your university CV format. Even if you have to rewrite your entire CV from your previous university's format, you must do it, and do it as soon as possible when you start at a new university. Get that work done, get that behind you, so that when you're ready to submit for promotion, your CV looks good, and it's in the format that your chair and that the dean want to see. The other thing you should do is ask to look at the CVs of persons who were most recently promoted to the rank that you seek. Find out who got promoted in the last cycle, because those people got reviewed by the Promotion and Tenure Committee that is going to be reviewing you this year. And so if you look at their CVs and see how they formatted them, what kinds of things they put in, what kind of things they highlighted, you will get a sense, okay, this is the kind of a CV that the current standing Promotion and Tenure Committee likes because they promoted this person. Now, it should be within your department, but you should also look at some other departments, because the P&T committee is looking at CVs from multiple departments. Probably it's not going to be helpful for you if you're trying to get promoted in pediatrics to, look at the CV of someone who was promoted in physiology, because there are different things that are germane to basic science and germane to medical practice. But you definitely need to ask to see those CVs of people who are most recently promoted, and you will get a flavor of what the P&T committee is looking for. Then ask someone who holds your desired rank and is prominent in the university to review your CV with you. This is a big ask. You're asking somebody to sit down for at least an hour, but it is time worth spent for you, and time, if they like mentoring, that they will be willing to spend. If you send it to them and ask them to review it, I promise you, we're all busy people. They will skim it and they will say something like, it looks fine, but here, change this or change that. But if you sit down with them and go through it with them page by page, they will be focusing their attention on it, and they will be giving you the mentorship that you're really seeking. It has to be someone who holds a desired rank, and someone who is prominent, because this is someone who's known to the P&T committee, who's known to the dean, who's known to chairs, who has some influence, and is going to be able to not only give you good information, but is going to then pass on and say, yeah, this person's working hard. They're looking for promotion. Schedule a meeting with someone at your own level who was just promoted to the rank you seek during the most recent promotion cycle. And again, talk to that person about what strategies did they use to put their CV together. Who did they talk to? Who did they get advice from? Just schedule a meeting. This meeting doesn't have to be quite as formal in terms of, sitting down and going through your CV page by page. You're seeking more information from them. You're asking if you can look at their CV. This is someone you can take to lunch or have coffee with and just kind of get some information from them as to what their preparation process was like. Now, does your department have an editor? That's actually one thing that we do have at LSU, which I had never heard of before. Our department has an editor, and the editor will go over your CV and examine it for format, for form, and for grammar and punctuation. This is a great help because you know this. Anything that you write a journal article, you write your CV, you write a portfolio, you write an email. A lot of times, if you've made a mistake, because you made that mistake, you don't see it when it's out there in front of you. And so if you have an editor who's looking over spelling and grammar and punctuation, that person is going to be able to make sure that your CV looks good when it gets turned in. And I don't have to tell you, because anybody who's in education knows when you get something from a resident or a postdoc and something is misspelled, you notice it, and it sort of detracts from your opinion of this person's work. You always kind of think, well, they didn't put a lot of time in it. They weren't careful. They didn't care enough. This is critical when you submit a proposal for research grant. It is critical for when you submit an article for journal publication, and it's critical also in your CV. Keeping your CV updated is critical. I cannot stress this enough. There are two things that I find that people make big mistakes with, that are high maintenance mistakes that all of us make. Number one is not turning your abstracts into manuscripts, because then a few years go by and you haven't done it. You either don't ever do it or it becomes very difficult. And not keeping your CV up to date. If you do not keep your CV up to date, it is going to take you hours. It is going to take you a whole entire day to sit down and get your CV updated, and you are going to leave things out. I can guarantee you are going to leave things out because you cannot remember everything that you did. So number one, use an electronic calendar. Everything that you're doing, this talk is on my electronic calendar. The grand rounds I did at Baylor 2 days ago, it's on my electronic calendar. So if I do not update after each presentation, which I always recommend to people to do, at least update monthly. So my CV, I have a note on my to-do list for tomorrow to put this presentation and the grand rounds I did at Baylor on my CV. But if something happens tomorrow and I don't get to do it, I know that at the end of the month, all right, well, today's the end of the month, but I know that at the end of the month, I'm going to go back onto my electronic calendar and I am going to capture every single grand rounds I gave, every talk that I gave, every paper that I submitted for publication. It's on my electronic calendar and it's in a different color. Put it in a different color, so that when you go back at the end of the month, if you haven't updated after each event, when you go back at the end of the month, you look for that color and you pull that stuff out. Now, once I have updated my CV, I changed the title of my CV. My title in my folders says CV in LSU format, June 2021. At the end of this month, I'm going to change it to say July 2021. This way I know that I have updated it. I know that I have saved it. You save it to the cloud, do some sort of a backup, because if you ever lose your CV, oh my God, you're really in a bad way. So I actually email it to someone else's account, and so that someone else has a copy of it every single month, and I have it backed up in the cloud. So protect your CV. It's not just about being high quality, but this is one of the most important tools of your career. Protect it and save it. Okay. Put line items in the category they belong according to your university standards. That is another thing. Your university may say invited presentations means only from another institution. The things that you do for your particular residency program or your department, they may want it under professional service under your department. Make sure you know where they want things put and put those things in the right place. This is when you first get the job at that university and you're revamping your CV to their format. You are reading through every single one of their policies and guidelines about where they want to see different things. And do not duplicate by putting an item in more than once, because it looks like you're padding your CV. And when people get the impression that you're padding your CV, they kind of get a vibe of dishonesty, and you don't want people to get that vibe of dishonesty. You want them to get the vibe that, and this is something that someone said to me a few years ago, and I don't know where they got the quote from, but I love it and I repeat it all the time. Be humble, but know who you are. So be humble, but know who you are. Don't undersell yourself. I know what I am. I know who I am. I know what I've accomplished. I know what I'm worth. And I'm going to present it in a humble way. I'm not going to try to puff it up or pad it or a false flag, but I am definitely going to tell you who I am in my CV. And that's something that you should do. Make certain you get credit for every single thing that you do. And that is not false flagging. That is being truthful. So in a humble way, you present yourself, but get credit for every single thing you do. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that later on in another section about how to do that. The high quality portfolio. So some universities require a portfolio and some don't. And there are differences based on the track in which you're seeking promotion. So if you're going for research, you need a research portfolio. If you're going for clinical, you may or may not need a clinical portfolio. Teaching, you'll need a teaching portfolio. Or tenure, you'll need a portfolio. And most of the same rules apply to what I said about the CV. Find out what the format is. And even if you don't like the format, use it. And as soon as you get hired into that place, rewrite your portfolio to conform to their format. Do the same thing. Look at portfolios of persons most recently promoted to the rank that you seek. They have been reviewed by the current P&T committee. And again, they should be within your department and other departments, but within the same domain, right? Because if I'm applying to be promoted on a teaching track, then I'm not going to look at somebody's portfolio from a research track. I want somebody else's portfolio from a teaching track. Here on your portfolio, you're going to be narrower than you would be with your CV. You're seeking advice from people who do what you do. So you might even not just separate based on basic science versus clinical, right? Someone who's promoted on a research track versus someone promoted on a clinical track or teaching track, but you might even narrow down. For example, if you're a vascular surgeon, you might take a look at some portfolios that came from people who are trauma surgeons or people who are general surgeons, somebody who comes from a closer specialty. So somebody who's a pediatric oncologist may want to look at an internal medicine oncologist's portfolio, because the portfolio is something that's a little tighter, that's a little narrower, that is going to be looked at by a smaller group of people, not just the whole P&T committee, but they're going to have somebody on that committee who is from a similar discipline or a similar track: research, clinical, teaching, tenure. Ask someone who holds your desired rank, again, to review your portfolio with you. Again, I cannot stress the sitting down. It takes time from them and it takes time from you. But if the person says yes, you know they're into that Willie Mae Johnson category of they want your success as much as you do. And that's a person that you want on your side. And then schedule that same meeting with someone promoted to the rank that you are seeking during the most recent cycle. Look for an editor in your department and keep your portfolio current. Your portfolio obviously is going to duplicate the things that are in your CV, but keeping your portfolio current is even more difficult than keeping your CV current sometimes, because when you're looking at mentoring relationships that you're putting in there on your portfolio, frequently you're going to be listing different projects that you mentored people on, not just saying, I mentored this person, these are the names and the duration of time I mentored them. But your portfolio is going to be a little bit more detailed. So be careful to keep it up to date so that you don't forget what you did. Now, pursuing and achieving promotion, I said earlier, get credit for everything. This means you have got to learn how to maximize every piece of work that you do. You start out by setting the scene. Make sure that your chair understands that your personal promotion benefits him or her. I'm going to say that again. Your personal promotion benefits your chair. And why? First of all, the sheer number of upper-level faculty in your department will prove to the dean, the chancellor, the provost that your chair is a great mentor. Make sure your chair knows that and understands that, because not all chairs do. You would think they would. You would think it would be intuitive. Not all chairs do. Make certain they know that the more people they have at the professor level, the associate professor level, the better they look as a mentor. And then go ahead and play the diversity card. You know what? The white boys have been doing it for generations. They have their old boys club. They grab each other's hand. They bring each other up behind them. There is absolutely no reason that we should not be doing this too. Play the diversity card. Tell your chair how good it is going to look for your chair, not only to have hired an underrepresented minority person, but to have retained that person and got that person to a higher academic rank. How good is this going to look? This is going to look good for them because people are paying attention to this nowadays. People are looking, not just us who are looking to go to a department where we're going to feel comfortable, or a university where we're going to feel comfortable and we're going to feel that we're wanted and that we fit in. But everybody is starting to look at this now. And so make sure that in a subtle way that your chair understands. Go ahead and just say it. You have hired me and you've retained me. And now if you get me promoted, it is going to look like you are on the same page with the university's plan for diversity, equity, and inclusion. Now, make yourself a plan. When I decided that I was going to be a full professor within 10 years of graduation from residency, I made a 10-year plan. And I took the university's guidelines for promotion. And I looked at, okay, how many grants do I have to get? That means X number per year. How many publications do I have to have? That means X number per year. And I broke it down year by year by year. And every 6 months, I took that work plan out on my computer and I looked at it and I said, where am I at? Because you sometimes lose sight of things. And I was like, oh my God, I have twice as many publications this year than my goal, but I didn't get a single grant. Oh, now I need to focus my energy to looking at my grants because I fell off on that. Because you can fall off on things very easily. People are coming to you, they're asking you to collaborate on a research project, they're asking you to write a paper with them, you get on a roll, you get a couple papers out of that, and then you just forgot that you haven't actively mentored anybody, that you haven't written a grant application or whatever it is that you fell off on. Every 6 months, checking that plan will help to keep you on track. Then read your university promotions policy guidelines. I said that earlier, I'm saying that again, but that is critical. You have got to know their policy. They're different at different universities. And make sure you check when they issue a periodic update. That happened to a friend of mine. She was up to, she read her promotions policy guidelines for her university and then was not aware that they had issued an update. And when it came time for her to be promoted and she was at an up and out institution, she got fired because she didn't have what she needed to put in her promotion packet. So make sure it's not their job. I mean, technically it is, and they're supposed to make an announcement, but if they don't do their job, you can't hold them responsible for that. They're going to say, you should have known, you should have checked. So know and check. And make note of the time frame. If you are in an up and out institution, you need to pay close attention to that. Some places have 7-year up and out, some have 10-year up and out, that if you don't put in your portfolio, you lose your job. So make sure that you know what their up and out policy is and what stops the clock. So this is new. This didn't used to be in place 15 years ago. But we now have stop the clock events, and that is a lot due to women who said, you know what, if I have a baby and I take a year off or I slow down in my academic productivity because I had a baby that I want to be involved in taking care of. So childbirth can stop your clock. The death sometimes of a parent, child, or partner can stop your clock. A sabbatical can be a year that isn't counted. So find out what the stop the clock policy is and who controls the stop the clock. And you have to communicate with them. The person that controls the stop the clock and doesn't know you had a baby cannot be held responsible for stopping your clock. You're responsible for everything, every single thing, even though other people maybe should be responsible or on paper they are responsible. You're the one who wants to get promoted. So take the responsibility. Don't make other people responsible because that can backfire on you. If someone else is responsible, that can backfire on you and you can end up not being able to get the promotion that you want. And everybody else, they don't care. They go home. They don't care. You're the one who's impacted. So make sure that this must be done. All right. And generally speaking, you will be expected to have a regional reputation when you're going up for assistant. a national reputation when you're going up for associate, and an international prominence when you're going up for professor. So keep that in mind as you start to grow your reputation. So the types of journals that you're publishing in, the kinds of places that you are giving presentations, form relationships with people through your activity in national and international organizations, and ask for opportunities. Ask people to give you opportunities. You have got to be your biggest promoter and your biggest cheerleader, and to make yourself the superstar that you want to be. Make sure people know who you are. So you start by volunteering around your institution. But again, if you want to go to assistant professor, you have to have a regional reputation, not just a reputation in your own institution. This is another mistake that I see young people make a lot. They get asked, oh, would you be on this committee? Would you be on that committee? Would you, and they get very active within their own institution, and nobody else knows who they are. Nobody even at another institution in the same city knows who they are. Nobody in the state medical society knows who they are. Nobody in their regional, their regional specialty organization knows who they are. Make sure that you get known outside your institution. Become active in your specialty societies. Become active in your state medical society. Become active. And then find out what committees the members of the P&T committee are on. So find out who's on the promotion and tenure committee. What committees do they sit on? What do they do within the institution? Join those things strategically. Make sure they know you. Make sure they know who you are. And when I give my career development lecture, I always tell people to make sure that you volunteer for things and then deliver a top-notch product and deliver it on time. If there's someone who sits on the P&T committee and you join a hospital committee that they're on, or better yet, they're in your specialty and you join a national group and join a committee within that group that they're on, or you join the state medical society and join a group that they're on. And then you volunteer to be on a subcommittee or a task force. You complete the task, you do a bang-up job, you do it on time. Don't you think that person's going to speak up in your favor when the P&T committee meets and say, I know her, I worked with her. She was on a task force in the State Medical Society with me, and she chaired the task force and she did an amazing job. She delivered exactly what we wanted and exactly on time. They will speak for you. So those people need to know you. Do some behind the scenes work and find out who they are, what their names are, what committees they're on in the institution and outside. Get involved in regional, national, and international organizations. And involved means not just a member. Involved means you join committees. Involved means you don't just sit there quietly during the committee. You say, I'm going to be on this task force. A lot of times, being on these task forces will get you a paper. A lot of times, when I was a very junior person, I got on a task force that was dealing with the Society for Academic Emergency Medicine, dealing with multi-generational learning and teaching. The task force was led by one of the former presidents of SAEM, and she was also the editor of a high-indexed journal. I worked really hard. She noticed that I worked really hard. She made me second author on that paper, and she was very helpful to me in other aspects of my career development. So be bold in introducing yourself to people of power. There's the Sentinel textbook in my specialty, Tintinelli's Guide to Emergency Medicine. Dr. Judy Tintinelli, I've introduced myself to her. I went up to her. I introduced myself to her years ago. Then she came to a presentation that I gave. She said, you're a phenomenal speaker. Would you write a chapter in my book? I wrote a chapter in her book. Then I got called by the US State Department to ask if I would go to Costa Rica to help them to develop a domestic violence surveillance program for their government, because I wrote the chapter on domestic violence and sexual abuse for the Judy Tintinelli's textbook. You do a good job Introduce yourself to somebody, volunteer for something, say yes, do a good job. Your reputation is going to spread. It is like dominoes, right? You knock one over and it's just going to happen for you. Your career will develop. Most professors with national renown actually like to mentor, like Dr. Michelle Biros did for me when I was on that committee with SAEM. They like to mentor. They like to see people develop. They like to see people, someone else said this to me too, and I've repeated it many, many times since I've become a professor. We do mentorship because it makes us feel good, not because we're altruistic people who just want to, sacrifice ourselves and be a saint. No, if it doesn't feel good, nobody does it. It feels good to mentor people, to see younger people succeed, to feel that you had a hand in that you had a hand in somebody's development and somebody's success. It feels good. So when you ask people to mentor you, don't feel like you're asking them for a big favor. You are giving them an opportunity to do something they like to do, and that makes them feel good. So be grateful, but then get over it and use the person's mentorship to help yourself to get ahead, because that's what they want to see. Busy people are happy to have you do the first draft or outline for them. So when you get on a committee and you tell the senior person, can I do the first draft of the IRB submission? Can I do the first draft of the paper? Whatever it is. This will help them and also help you. So I like to say this too. It's always no until it's yes. If you don't ask, you don't get. So when you get on these committees and you start to get involved, ask for help, ask for opportunities. Can I speak at this conference that's coming up? I see that your name is on it. I see you're a track chair. I see you're one of the organizers. Can you create an opportunity for me to give a presentation? And then they keep their eye out on you. You do a great job and they see that you do. And then they're happy to recommend you for other things going forward. Make a list of your letter writers. This is another thing. 18 months in advance, make a list of the full number of letter writers that you have to have, and have a couple of alternates. Cultivate a deeper relationship with those people over the subsequent 6 months. So you see how this is a domino thing, right? Because you've been volunteering for committees, you've been introducing yourself to powerful people, you've been doing projects with them, you've been doing extra, you've been making a great product for them, you've been delivering it on time. Now, a year ahead, you're going to say to them, I am going to be asking you for a letter of promotion. And always say this. Do you feel you can write a strong letter for me? And please tell me if you don't think you know me well enough to write a strong letter. Because if you say to them, I'm going to be asking you for a letter of recommendation for promotion to X rank, would you write a letter for me? Everybody's going to say yes. Oh, yeah, sure, I'll do that for you. And say to them, can you write a strong letter for me? Please feel free to say no if you don't think you know me well enough, because you do not want, all of us who read letters of recommendation, we know what a wimpy letter looks like. We know a letter from somebody who hardly knows you. And people make that mistake. They're like, oh, I'm going to ask someone who's a president of an organization. I'm going to ask someone who's a chair of a department, and that person doesn't know you from Adam. And they write a letter that shows that they don't know you. Get a strong letter from, it can be a less famous person if it's a strong letter where they can really say how deserving you are of the promotion. Then give them at least 2 months notice that your university is going to be asking them to referee your promotion packet. You can also offer a draft. A lot of times people that I've known a long time, like my former faculty, I will ask them, give me a draft or give me bullet points of the highlights of your career. I can write the letter much faster. And if I know you really well, like especially if you were one of my faculty when I was a resident, I know you really well, I can do the letter quickly and easily if you just give me the bullet points that highlight your career or a draft of the letter. Make it easy for other people to help you. Always make it easy for somebody to help you. If you are a low maintenance person and you make it easy for somebody, they are going to do that. My dean routinely, if I'm asking my dean to write a letter for me for a grant or whatever, he always tells me, Lisa, write the letter. And then I write the letter, and then he looks at it, makes a couple minor changes, and it's done. And he's able to say yes to me. He doesn't have time to do this all the time, but if I make it easy for him, then he makes it easy for me. Now, how do you maximize your research activities? Think about it. Did I work on a research project? Okay. When I worked on this research project, was I mentoring a more junior person in the course of conducting the research? If you did, put that down under people mentored. I mentored this resident. I mentored this postdoc. They were on the research project with you, and you gave them some time where you talked to them. You sat with them, together with them, and you wrote the IRB protocol. Whatever it is you did, you mentor them, put that person's name down under the list of people that you have mentored. Always submit an abstract to both regional, national, and international venues. Most conferences will tell you you can't, okay, this is a national conference. You cannot have presented at another national conference, but you can have presented at a regional conference. So make sure you do that. International conferences, as a rule, because many specialties like mine, emergency medicine is not as advanced in other countries as it is in the US. And so they are happy to have stuff that was presented at a national conference in the US. They will still take it. Sometimes, some of them will take things that were presented at even other international conferences because they realize that the body of knowledge in some specialties, like mine, it's not out there as much. And so if I'm going to be doing a conference in the Middle East, they'll take something that I presented in Sub-Saharan Africa or in Sudamerica. So know what those rules are and submit to as many things as you can. Did the research grow out of a quality assurance inquiry, a task force, or an assessment? Make sure that you have that task force down, or that you have that quality assurance project down as well. And then really critical to turn that abstract into a manuscript. This is where most people fall short. I have my little trifecta publication plan. Before I submit an article, I tell myself and my team, this is the place where I want to submit the article that it would be a dream come true for me if I could get into this journal. The minute we get a rejection from them, if we do, this is our second tier journal that we're going to send our manuscript to. This is the one that is like almost sure bet. And then we have our default one, the journal we know we're going to get into no matter what. So have your trifecta publication plan before you submit to the first journal. This way, if you get a rejection from the first journal, you're not, yes, you're angry and you're hurt. And, people always talk to you about that, right? I'm angry. I say they're a bunch of idiots. How could they possibly reject my work? It's the best thing on the planet. And then you get over that, but you immediately have your second journal planned that you're going to default to. And if you get a rejection from them, throw your hissy fit and then immediately go to that third journal that it's a low tier journal. I know they're going to publish it because you want to get a publication out of every single research activity you engage in. That is how you get promoted. Maximize your SCUT work. Titles matter. If you get assigned a SCUT duty, like, even something as like you have to help plan the social event for the residents' graduation party, ask your chair, can we have a committee for that? Can we call it a committee? Can I be put down on my CV that I'm the chair of that committee? Just do that. Any little thing that you are asked to do, say to your chair or your dean or your CEO or whoever it is, can we have a task force to do that? Because why waste your time doing things that you're not going to get any credit for? Turn everything into something you can get credit for. We'll have a task force to do the residency graduation party. And guess what, dudes and dudettes? You can call it wellness, right? Because having a party for your residents, especially after going through a year of COVID, this is wellness. So you are now the chair of the Residency Wellness Task Force. And yes, you're helping the program coordinator to call the hotels and to get the room booked and to choose the menu. But you have now become, with your chair's blessing, the chair of the Residency Wellness Task Force. Every single thing you do, ask whoever's in charge. Can we have a task force on this? Can we have a committee? Can we have a subcommittee? Can I be the chair of it? I'm putting this down on my CV. So that then if somebody asks them, they spot check something later, they go, oh, yeah, that's right. I remember she asked me that. She said she wanted to have a task force to do that. So maximizing your committee work. Again, the same thing. If the committee has a job that has to be done, the board of directors says they want the committee to address this particular thing. Like as president of AAM, I had my legal committee begin to look at the phone calls we were making to respond to emails and phone messages we got from emergency physicians who were punished by taking off the schedule or fired for complaining about the lack of PPE. So I asked the legal task force, can you take responsibility to respond to all these inquiries? And I said to them, because this is where my head is at into all this promotion stuff, I said to them, form a task force. And this is going to be something within your committee. You will have a task force of people who are going to respond, or a subcommittee of people who are going to respond to inquiries from individuals who were fired or taken off the schedule or penalized in some other way for complaining about the lack of PPE at their facility during COVID-19, or at least a working group. So for example, within some of the committees we have in AAM, our Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee has some working groups. We have the Research Working Group. We have the Policy Statement Working Group. We have the Wellness Working Group that does all of our social events, because why? Our social events are important. Our social events help expose the broader AAM, the broader American Academy of Emergency Medicine, to what is going on in diversity, equity, and inclusion. What did we do when we were in St. Louis? We decided, the DEI committee decided to run a trip to Scott Joplin birthplace and the Scott Joplin Museum, so that people of color would get more in touch with our history, and people who were not of color would learn about Scott Joplin, who was an incredible blues musician and did a lot to advance the role of people of color in jazz music. And then what else did we do? Well, we had a social event. We had an outing where we brought people to listen to jazz at a jazz club. So they formed a wellness working group, and they got credit on their CVs for having a wellness working group for planning the social events that took place, because this is about wellness, but it's also about our psychological wellness, as we are able to show our culture and how great it is to the larger body. So volunteer to chair these things. Often all you have to do is keep minutes or take notes or prepare a little report. And if you get to give the report verbally, that puts you in the spotlight, and that highlights what I said earlier, make sure people know who you are. So retrospectively, you can sometimes even now go back and say, you know, that group I served on where I did a special task that you asked me to do, can I put that on my CV as a task force? Just make sure that people know it, so that if anybody spot checks and asks, did she do this? Did he do this? That the leader in charge of that group knows that you put it down as a task force or activity. And then try to get an abstract out of it. A lot of things that you do to highlight your culture, to make other people aware of it, to improve the wellness and pride of underrepresented minorities in your residency program or in your Department of Basic Science. You can actually write an abstract how you achieved this particular outcome that was beneficial to increasing diversity or improving awareness about the value of other cultures. And that leads me into highlighting your Latinx contributions. DEI is a hot topic right now, and everybody wants to jump on the bandwagon and say they're doing something. Well, a lot of them don't know what the hell to do. They don't have the first clue on earth of how they want to do it, except they want to say that they're interviewing people and hiring people of color. Well, as we all know, that doesn't work. You can hire people and those people are miserable. Those people feel isolated. Those people do not feel included. Those people do not feel valued. So go to your chair, go to your dean and say, this is what I am doing to retain the people that are being hired. This is what I am doing to improve recruitment, to improve retention, which is where everybody is falling down. People are falling down on retention and inclusion. And whatever you are doing, right? One of the things that we did with our residency years ago, when I first started the diversity section for our residency, was we started inviting candidates of color. They literally came to my house. We had snacks. We sat around and we said, okay, this is where we're keeping it 100. This is where you can ask the questions, where you can get your hair done. This is where you can ask, where you can go to hear una misa en español. This is where you can go to where your child will not be the only child of color in a daycare center. So if we're doing this, and at the time, right, I was a professor, I didn't need it, but I got another person in my department, an African-American male, and I said, you're going to be the chairman of this. You're going to be the person who's organizing this activity. And we gave it a name and he put it on his CV. So these are things that you're doing to increase recruitment, to increase retention, to increase a sense of inclusion, people having a sense of belonging, make it into something formal. And believe me, trust me, your chair is going to want to take credit for it. Your dean is going to want to take credit for it. So they'll be happy to give it a name, to let you give it a name, let you be in charge of it, because they want to take credit for it, because every university is trying to prove, every school of medicine is trying to prove, every department is trying to prove that they're doing something. So focus your chair and dean on the importance of promoting BIPOC and highlight how this will attract other people of color to come to work in your department and your school of medicine. Because now you have these formal programs with names, which are things that you would probably do anyway. You would probably go up to those residents who are coming to interview, who are of color, and say, here's my card, call me, I'm happy to talk to you. Turn it into a formal thing, make it a program that you're doing, and they will embrace it because they don't want anybody to point a finger and say that they're not doing anything to further diversity, equity, and inclusion. Mentoring. Every student you advise is a mentoring relationship. List them on your CV. Everything you do, you can spin into something that you can get credit for. It is early days, so people can actually even get titles in DEI earlier in their careers. There's no way that you would ever have an assistant professor being a vice chair of a department. But you know what? Assistant professors are getting to be vice chairs of departments for diversity, equity, and inclusion. Why? Because there's nobody else. And so speak up. Go ask for this. Tell them, I want to be the vice chair for diversity, equity, and inclusion. Here are the things that I have done. This is the thing that I am doing. Now, the important thing, and I feel very compelled about this because I hate when people say that DEI is a soft science or that, wellness is a soft science, mental health is a soft science. That is a bunch of bull. And you guys know that, right? Because it is hardcore. If you cannot get the patient to trust you, to believe that they care about you, if there's no concordance between you and the patient, if you don't have a language in common, if you don't have a culture in common, the patient is not going to follow your treatment plan. And so this is hardcore. This is not a soft science. This is hardcore. And we need to get the cred for it being hardcore. So if you are going to pursue this as your niche, get the proper training and credentials that help everybody else to know that this is hardcore, right? Sign up for the AAMC HEDIC program. Sign up for the minority faculty development program. Sign up for the MidWIM Career Development Program at the AAMC. Get the credentials that you need. Not just anybody can do what you do. And just because you are something doesn't mean that you know how to teach it to other people. Just because you are Cuban doesn't mean that you are able to teach people about how to deal with their unconscious biases. So get the training, get the credentials. There's a new ACGME year-long course that several junior faculty that I know have gotten involved in. Find out what's out there, get the credentials, and establish yourself as a specialist in this very, very critical and very, very important and very hardcore field that we are advocating for. Highlight that not just anybody can do what you do, not just anybody can do this work, not just anybody can get up there and say, oh, yes, I'm working for diversity in my department, because we see how it's happening, because all they know how to do is interview people and then maybe hire them. And then they do not make people feel included. They do not make people feel that they belong. And I know this, no pun intended, but the complexion of the department or the complexion of the school doesn't really change. The environment, the atmosphere doesn't really change just because they hire some people and don't make those people feel comfortable or belong. But you can do that. So community engagement is another thing that is huge. Have you spoken at your child's school? Have you stood up there and said, you know what? People that look like me can be doctors? Have you done an activity at your church or mosque where you have educated people about hypertension, diabetes, HIV? Go forward and organize a health fair at your church, at your mosque, at your kids' school, at your local community center. Put up posters in barbershops, hair and nail salons about my hospital is doing COVID testing and this is where you can get it done. My hospital is giving vaccines and this is where you can get it done. Offer to speak at a PTA meeting. Offer to speak on a local radio talk show about what's going on with COVID or any other health maintenance issue. Offer to speak and then make sure to mention your hospital. My hospital is doing COVID testing. This is where we're doing it. You know, our hospital, I was very proud that we have a lot of Honduran and Mexican individuals who are here without papers. And so when we realized that they were not going and getting tested for COVID early during the pandemic, we spoke to our health commissioner in the city and we got that requirement removed. You do not have to show any identification. And bing, bang, boom, tons more people started showing up from the Latinx community. I highlighted this on a radio show that I spoke on when I talked to people about the fact that you can get tested and you do not have to show any identification and it is free. And my hospital is the one that generated this. My hospital is the one that started this. You know that my CEO and my CMO were thrilled that they were getting this kind of publicity. So make sure you get a link to the programs that you do and give it to your chair or dean so they know that you are promoting their institution and that they're going to feel the love and they're going to show you the love when it comes time for you to be promoted. So take home points. Preparation is the key to everything in medicine and in fact, all science. And it is no different when you get promoted. Preparation is the key to everything. Then make every single thing you do count for something that will get you promoted. Number 3, make sure that leaders know that promotion of people of diverse backgrounds is in everyone's best interest. And this is how, and Dr. Sanchez can tell you when I spoke to our dean, and Dr. Zia can tell you when I spoke to our dean about signing up and paying the dues for LMSA, I said to them, this is not for the Latinx students. We are not doing this for the Latinx students. This is for every single student in the institution to learn about how to care for Latinx patients and how to be inclusive of Latinx students and faculty. So the promotion of people of diverse backgrounds is in everybody's best interest. And my last thing, stay focused on your goal. That is the Mamba philosophy, which I embrace. I love basketball. And so everybody says that's the reason that I know all these quotes from basketball players. But this is the thing that you must keep in mind. When you make a choice and you say, come hell or high water, I am going to be this. I am going to be a professor. I am going to be a dean. I am going to be the president of the friggin' university. Then you should not be surprised when you are that. It should not be something that feels intoxicating or out of character, because you have seen this moment for so long that when that moment comes, of course it is here. It is here because it has been here the whole time, because it has been in your mind the whole time. If you can see it, you can be it. Don't keep it a secret. Tell everyone what you want. Enlist everyone to help you get there, and you will have it. That is how you can reach me. If I can be of any help to you in any way, to help you to until medicine looks like us. That's what we're going for. So in any way that I can help you, I would be happy to do so. And that is the end of my presentation. And I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for the opportunity to speak to you. It is, to me, an extreme honor to be able to speak to this organization and this group of people. I was in LMSA when I was a student, and it has been a part of my life since then. So thank you all for allowing me to be a part of your life.
Excellent. Thank you, Dr. Moreno-Walton. Just outstanding presentation. And I think my charge to all of you is not only to optimize your CV and portfolio, but to invite Dr. Moreno to apply for your Dean of Faculty Affairs positions. I think she would be a huge mentor and champion and sponsor for your faculty, and to continue to invite her to do presentations, not only for Hispanic Heritage Month, which is coming up September 15th to the October 15th, but all year round. Just really phenomenal, and congratulations on reaching full professor within 9 years. A huge, huge accomplishment. So with that, I'm gonna ask everyone to transition over to our closing plenary session on hospital leadership. And so that will be moderated by Dr. Figueroa, and the co-presenters will be Dr. Cora Bramble and Dr. Benton Court. So see you there. Thank you again, Dr. Moreno, and hopefully see you in Malta.
Yes, thank you for the honor.